Siri, play Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast.
Okay, Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast coming up.
Thank you. Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 140. Cameron COBLE, the average Joe blue-collar deer hunter. Public deer hunting strategies for Kansas, Iowa, Indiana, and Illinois. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible.
Today's show is sponsored by Morris Sporting Goods and the Euro Hanger.
Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
This is Big Al Morris with Fox Pro Game Calls, and you're listening to my favorite deer hunting podcast, Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. Hey everybody, this is Nick Munt from Bone Collector, and you're listening to my favorite deer hunting podcast, Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
I'm Trent Cole.
And I'm Richie Elam from Blitz TV.
And you're listening to Big Buck Registry, Big Buck Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. My name is Jay, and I'm sitting here talking to you right now. I don't know where you are. Hopefully you're listening to us in a car or on your computer somewhere, or iPhone. Maybe you're sitting around just waiting to dial up the next episode here. And I'm sure that you're eager to hear from my good friend Dusty Phillips, who's sitting in Ohio right now. What's going on, my friend?
Yo, yo, yo. What's happening, everybody?
What's the latest and greatest in Ohio?
Man, just trying to get a little workout on, and hitting the gym. And my whole goal is to look like a different person when I show up in New Hampshire on May 6th.
Really? Going to join the Billy Goats and the Gruff and head up the mountain with us, is what you're saying?
I'm going to try.
Nice. Looking forward to this experience. This will be excellent. Coming out to New Hampshire to do a little turkey hunting in the May. That's going to be excellent.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. I'm looking real forward to it. We're taking Mike Bierman, the living room buck shooter, out with us. And we're going to whack and stack some thunder chickens.
That's fantastic. I mean, Mike, we met through this entire endeavor we're on here, where we try to dissect world-class deer hunters and figure out what makes them tick. And Mike was one of those guys that showed up with one of the most unique, fantastic photos of all time, where he took a picture of a buck, a big 200-inch buck that was in his living room because his wife told him to bring it in because it was raining outside, and that wouldn't do so well for pictures. So
it needed some better lighting.
For great pictures. So here we are with Mike Berman.
Drag this thing right in the living room.
Yeah, we've gone hunting with Mike, and now he's coming up to New Hampshire. So this whole thing we've started, man, it's like a movement, and we're making friends all over the country. We're hunting with folks that we just really enjoy hanging out with, and Mike and you coming up to hang out with me and Greg and do some New Hampshire turkey hunting, which I guarantee you will be better than the New Hampshire deer hunting. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. We're going to hook up with Greg and hopefully Tom comes out and hunts with us. And man, it's just
Tom. Yeah,
we're going to stop and see our good friends over at Morris Sporting Goods and see Jim Morris and Randy, Tom, and just hang out and have a great time, Jay. And maybe run up and see Dean Vanier from Northwoods Common Sense. It's going to be an epic 4 or 5 days.
It's going to be like a Big Buck Registry homecoming in a lot of ways.
Maybe we can catch a Red Sox game at Fenway Park. It could be a great time, man.
Yep. Yeah, all good stuff. So have you been out doing any shed hunting yet?
Yeah, I'm kind of rough on myself about that. I've been focusing more on the gym than I have the sheds, and that's something that usually is vice versa.
Right.
But this year I've got a goal, and man, I'm going to push hard and make sure that I get to that goal.
You're just kind of changing things around a little bit. And you got to have those goals in life, You can't always, not everything can be all deer hunting all the time. Certainly we enjoy it when it is, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Hold up, dude. You're completely wrong.
Really?
Yeah, deer hunting should be priority. I mean, you get your priorities straight, Jay.
Well, I guess when at the end of the day, the reason that you're doing this is to get in shape for turkey season, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to make it where I can travel New Hampshire mountains.
Gotcha. All right, which was predicated on the whole point of when you came up to New Hampshire to do deer hunting. So this has kind of driven you. So all right, I gotta get ready for the mountain hunting of New Hampshire.
Yeah, there's no more of like let you guys drive and walk the hills. I'm going in the woods.
So this really does have everything to do with hunting when it comes right down to it. So what I said is completely incorrect.
Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah, of course. You agree with me. So I bring up shed hunting only because there is a shed rally that will be occurring on the 12th. And I had a interesting conversation with a fellow by the name of Andrew Schultz over at Whitetail Properties recently, and they have a shed rally coming up on the 12th. It's like this movement. It's this giant movement, and I get to kind of figure out what's going on with that movement by talking to Andrew, who's one of the people that knows an awful lot about it because it originated through Whitetail Properties. So if there's anything you need to know right now, it's called #ShedRally. So here's Andrew Schultz with a little detail on the shed rally. So we're talking to Andrew Schultz from Whitetail Properties, and we're going to talk a little bit, Andrew, if it's cool, about your shed rally that you've got coming up.
Well, shed rally's on the 12th, actually, of March. So it's the world's largest shed hunt is what it started out as, and it's definitely become that. And this is the third annual shed hunt that we're doing, or the third annual shed rally. And what we're doing is we're calling all men, women, families, anybody who loves the outdoors or has an interest in the outdoors to get out and shed hunt and try and find some antlers and then share that experience or those experiences across social media. So
that's cool.
We want people to use the Shed Rally hashtag and share their experiences and their fun times in the outdoors with other people who are enjoying the same things on that day.
Okay, so it's coming up on Saturday, March 12th. And
yes, sir.
Let's talk about the background of the Shed Rally a little bit. When was it first started? What was the initiation date on that?
Yeah, so it was started, like I said, this is the third annual one, so a little longer than 3 years ago, but an employee here at Whitetail Properties, Michael Turbyfill, he came up with the concept and then kind of drove the bus, when he was here working for our company. And so Shed Rally is something that caught traction really, really quick, and it just hasn't really looked back ever since then. And it's grown in popularity each year. We've got incredible brands getting behind it, like Realtree and Legendary Whitetails, and several other companies that have somewhat endorsed the idea of Shed Rally. And so it was created a little over 3 years ago, and everybody's just kind of jumped in because it was wildly successful the first year, and it was a great way to unite outdoorsmen all across the world. Even people who might not be able to be here at their homes with their families.
Yeah.
We had soldiers submitting pictures from across the world, and it was just really incredible the amount of support and just power that went into this thing.
So what has happened over the years? I mean, how many people are we talking have gotten involved in this thing? Do you have a count? Have you been able to track it?
Yeah, there's millions and millions of people. The impressions that were made on social media alone, and some of that's difficult to measure, but we're talking about millions of people that are talking about Shed Rally, that are seeing Shed Rally, and then tons and tons of people just getting out in the outdoors on that day. It's kind of crazy to think about because you get kind of caught up in what you're doing on that day, and you might be trying to find a shed off of a particular buck that you were watching during hunting season, or maybe you're just trying to find your first shed in general. But all across the world, there's just tons and tons of other hunters and outdoorsmen or people who just love to get outside and enjoy the great outdoors doing the exact same thing you're doing, and just having fun and spending time with friends and family. And so it's really cool to stop and think about that. But, yeah, I would say easily, millions of people are touched by this thing.
Let's say I've happened to find this 8-pointers shed, all right?
Yep.
What do I do to alert the world that I've got a successful shed rally underway?
Right. So after you calm down from the initial excitement of finding that shed, or maybe not after you calm down, video that or take a picture with it. Maybe you've got a son or daughter that's there with you to experience it. Take a picture of them holding on that big 8-point shed. So really, once you take that video or take that picture and you want to share it with the world, just use the hashtag Shed Rally.
Okay.
And that's how everybody will be able to look at that. And we'll also be sharing things from our Whitetail Properties social media pages. So, tag us in it as well, and we can share it. And we want everybody to see the fun that you're having and the big deer that you're going to be chasing after next year. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, those will be the 3 platforms that we'll really be watching and sharing things on, and talking to people who are out there shed hunting that day. So definitely.
Nice. What's the most unbelievable story you've gotten out of all of this since it started?
Man, we've had engagement photos sent to us. We had some, like I touched on earlier, we had some soldiers, that unfortunately weren't able to be back here in the States, shed hunting with their friends and family. And one of our agents actually boxed up some shed antlers and sent them over to those soldiers, and they were able to have a little shed hunt of their own. And, that's a really incredible story. So, and I'm sure there's more to come. That's what's awesome about an event like this. You just never know which direction the next person's going to take it. But it's another unifying event for us outdoorsmen, and we all know how important that is for us to stay united. Especially in today's industry with anti-hunters and people that don't quite understand that hunting is about much more than just harvesting an animal. It's about things like shed rally and planting food plots, and the list goes on. And so shed rally is just one aspect of that.
I think that's cool. It's like a global movement to go find some antlers in the woods. That's pretty neat. And it sounds like it's got a lot of potential to get spread the word about all the other things that go along with that. You've got your hunting, your hunters, you've got your family aspects. You can have just the whole idea of just getting out in the woods, period, and getting some exercise and breathing some really good air. I think it's a cool package. Is what it comes down to.
Yeah. Thank you. We're excited about it. We're really excited, and we hope that it continues to grow and snowball into an even larger event.
If we want more information right now, like if we want to go just read about it so we could tell somebody else about it, is there a place where we can go to read more?
If you were to just Google Shed Rally, it's become that big of a thing where
Nice.
You'll be able to find plenty of information on it. But yeah, social media, use the hashtag Shed Rally and post on one of the Whitetail Properties social media pages, and we'd be able to answer any questions that anybody has. And on our website, we've done a couple different blogs promoting Shed Rally, and so you can find it on whitetailproperties.com. So yeah, we're really excited, and people can read more about it in all those places.
Awesome. All right. So once again, Saturday, March 12th, Shed Rally, hashtag Shed Rally, put on by Whitetail Properties. It's becoming a global movement. Get involved. Thank you, Andrew Schultz, for joining us on the Big Buck Podcast and telling us all about hashtag Shed Rally. Speaking of unique photos, as we talked about in our little opening conversation there with Mike Behrman in the living room buck, there's another fella out there who's got this very unique perspective, and he has a very cool persona when it comes down to it about deer hunting. And the photo that kind of captured my eye, it was this picture of this fella that had a clearly shed hunting. And you can see how there was this is a common theme of this week's show. He was out shed hunting. He found a shed, but he also found a half-eaten carcass of a large buck, and he threw the carcass over his back, carrying the large buck in his front hands, or the sheds, which I think technically was a skull. And he's walking through a herd of cattle, and somebody snaps a picture, and his name is Cameron COBLE. So I got the intuition that he was probably into deer hunting as much as we were, and I've reached out to Cameron. He has agreed to come join us on the show, and it turns out that Cameron actually has some incredible insight. And I think if you ask Cameron a question about where are all the state records held in each county in each state, I think he'd be able to tell you that and give you the inches for what what state holds which records.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, ain't it? I mean, I know a lot of counties in Ohio, but man, it sounds like he knows like different states and what bucks and all that is crazy, Jay.
He studies it. He's a student of this stuff, and he's a great deer hunter to boot. And I don't want to discredit that whatsoever. He really knows his stuff, and he has some different perspectives, and just it's enlightening to hear somebody have a new spin on just different techniques, and he definitely has that. I think it's just because he's a unique individual. He's into outdoor photography and deer hunting in general. So. Well, we got Cameron to join us. He's coming on next. But before we get there, let's go to Jim Keller with the Deer News.
The Deer News this week is sponsored by the Euro Hanger. You don't have to spend big bucks to hang your big buck. Get yourself a Euro Hanger. Facebook.com/Eurohanger, EUROHANGER.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. Our first story this week, Cecil the Lion controversy creates lion overpopulation. The Vancouver Sun newspaper reports a Zimbabwe park is warning it may have to shoot 200 surplus lions now that big game hunters are staying home. Zimbabwe is the country where the lion known as Cecil was killed. The outcry over a hunter's killing of Cecil has driven other big game hunters away from Zimbabwe, fearful they too would attract the ire of the public. Since the controversy, the lion population has become unsustainable, and it may be necessary to cull 200 of the lions. The situation in Zimbabwe is known as the Cecil effect. Lions are extremely territorial, place a high demand on other animal populations for food, pose a danger to humans, and as a result require huge expanses of lands to exist. Previously, big game hunting helped control the lion numbers as well as provided revenue to maintain their habitat for all animals in huge preserves. Lion habitat is quickly shrinking, and these preserves cannot be maintained without a source of revenue. Lion numbers, which were as high as 450,000 in the 1940s, are feared to be less than 20,000 today, to a large extent due to shrinking habitat, human conflict, and shrinking food supplies. The long-term potential of African big game hunting is in jeopardy due to the Cecil effect bolstering a U.S. plan to ban trophy hunting imports. Big game hunting is a critical industry to Africa, and it is critical to the survival of many species of animals in Africa. Joe Franz is cleared of poaching charges. Iowa hunter Joe Franz has been exonerated of all charges after a court ruling found that he was not guilty of harvesting a Marion County buck over bait. The Iowa Department of Natural Resources has also announced it will be returning to Franz the mount of his deer and his hunting equipment. Franz's buck, believed to be the largest ever taken on video, green scored at 258 7/8 inches. DNR officers charged Franz last year with 4 counts of hunting over bait for the buck, which was harvested on his 80-acre property in 2014. Officials said that Franz knowingly hunted near a mineral lick that had been set up by the property's previous owner. Franz had contacted the DNR prior to hunting and specifically asked about hunting near that site. The DNR simply instructed him to cover it up, which he did. In the end, the video of the hunt proved to be Franz's greatest defense. It indicated that the deer had little interest in the mineral site and neither approached it nor inspected it. Due to this, the judge found Franz not guilty of the charges. For additional details of the story, including pictures of the Franz buck, please visit OutdoorHub.com. Michigan State Senate approves bills to regulate drone use. In Lansing, Michigan, state lawmakers have reintroduced bills designed to control the use of drones. Senate Bill 54 would prohibit the use of drones to harass or interfere with hunters or to use submersible, remote-controlled vehicles to harass anglers. Senate Bill 55 would make it a crime to use drones in the taking of game. The bills are tie-barred together, so both must pass to become law. To date, there have not been any reports of hunters using drones to take game, nor hunters being harassed by drones. However, PETA is encouraging its members to purchase drones to use to harass or otherwise monitor and photograph hunters. Drones would still be allowed to track or photograph game outside of hunting seasons. For the full story, please visit OutdoorNews.com. To protect Minnesota moose, DNR may tweak deer hunting boundaries. To protect Minnesota's dwindling moose population, the DNR is considering changes to deer hunting permit boundaries in the Arrowhead region. The plan is to reduce deer numbers in the state's primary moose range while increasing them in the deer hunting areas that don't contain moose. The goal of this change is to reduce the transfer of diseases and parasites from deer to moose, which has been identified as one of the several causes of a sharp decline in Minnesota's moose numbers. Deer carry certain parasites such as brainworm, which do not affect them but can be fatal to moose. Deer hunters have responded cautiously to the plan with concerns touching on timing and pace. If approved, the changes could take effect as early as this year's deer season. The DNR plans to post details of the proposal on its website through March 13th. That concludes this week's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. If you have any ideas for future topics or have questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Thanks to Jim Keller for the Deer News. And without further ado, here's Cameron Coble.
Cameron Coble, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. What's happening, my friend?
Oh, not much. It's relaxing this evening. I'm actually looking at a little bit of antlers tonight. And it seems like every day I've got some type of antler in my hand, either scoring it or doing something with it about every day, either reading about antlers or checking a lot on Facebook, seeing what's popped up this time of year. You know, it's always been an interest of mine to see what's going on in the whitetail world, I guess. Deer show this time of year is deer show time, so
right.
Getting ready for that. Big deer show coming up this Friday's Iowa deer show, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so that ought to be good.
So you seem to have this like intimate relationship with the whitetail and the antlers, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just what it appears to be going on here. You like these things.
Yeah. You know, I don't know sheds as well. I got some buddies that collect sheds, and I worked with them at the Kansas show. Some people saw it on Facebook, and it's not saying it's embarrassing, but I don't know the sheds as well, because if you ask me like a state and some type of record deer from the state, I could probably just tell you instantly. But the sheds I don't know quite as well. But,
sure.
I guess it started when I started getting into the antlers and stuff. It just started, I bought a North American Whitetail magazine in November 1991 was the very first North American Whitetail magazine I had, and I've got every issue since then. And I don't know, they spoiled me, I guess. I read into them and bought a record book here or there, and just read and was just really interested in big racks. And I got maps that are just highlighted in counties, and whenever I talk to somebody, I said, "What county are you from?" I know counties better than like towns, it seems like.
Yeah. Right.
And it just comes from there, I guess, and patterns emerging and why some states or counties are better than others.
Yeah, that's a telltale sign when you're tracking counties that you're into this stuff. Like if you say a county, that makes sense.
Some of the states I'm trying to get a little better with. Kentucky's gotten pretty good the past 10, 15 years, and there's not coming out where the more the general public knows, but Kentucky's kind of scattered all over the place. Western Kentucky's good, but they like I said, a lot of people don't know a lot about them. In Ohio, I mean, they've always been pretty good. They just get a lot of limelight now, and I mean, they're a good state, no doubt. But I don't know those states real well, the counties. I mean, I know some, but not as many like in Kansas or Iowa or Indiana. So, I just spend time. It's pretty boring some nights. Like on a Friday night, I'll sit down and look at a record book or map, you know,
Sure.
or Google stuff on my phone. I mean, it sounds boring, but to me, it's pretty neat. always looking at numbers and tracking stuff down. And like, for example, at the Iowa Deer Show, I'll walk around on a Sunday. I won't do it till Sunday. That way, all the deer have been brought in. But I'll take notes and watch the leaderboards. The Iowa Show is set up like a deer show should be set up, because they have everything in a category. They have a leaderboard like archery typical, archery non-typical, firearm typical, firearm non-typical, and they have, I don't know, a dozen different categories, and it's pretty cool. So they might bring a deer on Friday, but then by Sunday it'll be knocked down to third or fourth place. It's really neat,
right.
How it's put together. I've always liked that about it. I'm always over there hawking the leaderboards, just watching and see what's brought in.
Oh, interesting. So that's good. So not only are you into it in the field, like for hunting, but this is like entertainment for you as well, to go see what else is going on.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, I think. I mean, I like going see a lot of friends at these shows over the years. I probably go to the deer shows, not taking notes like that hard or everything, but I've probably gone to them since like 1994 or 95. I started going to them pretty hard every year.
Yeah. At
least one deer show somewhere.
Gotcha. And, that's fascinating. So you're from you live in Kansas now, correct?
Yeah, I was originally from Indiana.
Okay.
And then Kansas and Iowa. I bounced back and forth sometimes. It seemed like, I was in Iowa in 2008, went to Kansas. In Kansas. So I like it. I don't know. I want to get back up to Iowa, but it's coming pretty soon. Like I said, I'm not hiding it from anybody, but I don't tell everybody where I'm at all the time.
All right.
Per se. I mean, it's not that I'm hiding anything. It's just, I don't know, some things keep to myself. I don't tell everybody everything, but it's not that I'm doing nothing wrong.
Gotcha. Yeah, you just like to stay to yourself a little bit. I get that. Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, there's some things you just keep to yourself, So, but
gotcha.
So I don't know. I like Ohio a lot. The past 2 years, I've really liked Ohio, but I always said I got to stop running one of these days.
I don't know what you're running from, but I hope it's nothing bad. Gotcha.
Well, it's not a lifestyle like people think you live for and just try to hunt deer. I don't know. Some days I get up and think, man, is this really worth it?
Gotcha. So you grew up in Indiana.
Yeah, Indiana's gotten better past few years. It's a pretty good state, but like I said, I'm not going to talk deer management with you or whatever, but they did do a good thing in 2003. They knocked it down to $1 a year, which I liked, but they run their opening day shotgun the 14th of November. When it just decimates the chances of a buck getting through the rut with a gun. They hunt them for 16 days with a gun, then they hunt them for 16 more days or so with a muzzleloader. So. I don't know. If you look at the top states, the patterns there, like Kansas, Iowa, Ohio, their firearms after the rut are in December.
Right.
And I don't know. So that goes back to following numbers and playing that game and everything, I suppose. So everybody's got their favorite state to hunt, though, where they like to go.
Gotcha. What's your favorite state? I mean, you've spent a lot of time in some of the best whitetail states in the country. Which one is your favorite?
Yeah, it's a toss-up. I can't. I hear a lot of good stuff about Ohio, so I can't throw them in the mix. I wish I could. Mm-hmm. I've hunted public land in Kansas and Iowa, and it's a toss-up, but I'd probably give the slight edge to Iowa, probably.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with Kansas, but I'd probably give this a little bit of edge to Iowa. It just seems like I don't know. I've seen big deer in both states. I've been on big deer in both states, and I'd probably say Iowa. Everybody wants to go there. It's a hard state to get in for one thing because of the draw of the lottery system. It takes a couple of years with a bow. You have a better chance of getting in with a gun to hunt Iowa than you do with a bow.
Interesting. Why do you say that?
Yeah. Well, because of the way the lottery works in Iowa, and then someone may correct me on this if they listen to this, but I know I'm not a gun hunter anymore anyway, and I ain't got nothing against gun hunting, but I know, like, if you for a certain zone in Iowa, the non-resident, it might take you 2 or 3 years just to draw, and you got to pay for preference points. Whereas a muzzleloader or a gun, you might get in fairly quick. It's a lottery, and the applicants they get, and that's just what I've been told over the years and I've seen. And I guess there's probably just as many bow hunters as gun hunters in Iowa, I'd imagine.
Gotcha.
At certain times, because in Iowa you can't. It's a weird law they got in Iowa. If you hunt the first shotgun season in Iowa and don't kill nothing, you can't hunt the second, even if you don't kill nothing.
That's a funky rule. I didn't know that one.
Yeah, they've got some strange rules in a lot of these different states that I just, like I said, I look that up when I'm running numbers or whatnot. Some states you can bait, some states you can't, some states you can do this and that. I mean, they all got their own little quirks, I guess. But.
Right. So what do you do for a living, Cameron? Well, on Facebook, you claim to be the head barrel thrower at Dumpster Diver.
Well, I'll dive into that with you. I spent a lot of years in college, and I did. I'll throw this out there. I went to 3 different colleges. I went to total years. I went 7 years, and I do a lot of factory work. It's not a desired job that I want to do, but if I work second or third shift, it gives me a lot of time to hunt. And it's not what I want to ultimately do. I'm getting older though, but it's not ultimately what I want to do with my life. And I always thought the perfect job would be 3 days a week, 3 12s.
Got it. Okay.
Would be perfect, but I guess I just tell people, like, when people ask me, or a girl asks me, what do you do for work? I say grunt work. So I've known grunt work.
Grunt
I
work.
say, what's that? I say picking up a heavy box, setting it down.
I pick things up, I put them down. All right, that's cool. There's nothing wrong
firewood.
Yep.
I don't know.
So it sounds like your job is just a job, and it's nothing
it's
not a career
job,
point
yeah.
yet.
It keeps me alive. I should say that. It just keeps me afloat. And like I said, it's not. I don't know that it's. A lot of people think it's a great lifestyle, but it keeps me floating so what I can do. I can able to do what I want to do. The flexibility, I guess, is there in some regards.
It gives you some time to do all the things you enjoy, though, in life, which sounds like it's being in the whitetail woods overall.
Yeah. It's I just even like going for hikes. Like this next couple of days, I'll be shed hunting or whatnot. So even if I don't find nothing, I just like to be out there. I'm always taking pictures. I've gotten into photography a lot, and I don't even have a good camera, but I like to take pictures, and I want to get a good camera, but
yeah,
always taking pictures of stuff and messing around with that and everything. But it's always fun out there. It's quiet.
So let's talk a little bit about your growing up and what deer hunting meant to you. It sounds like it's always been part of your life. When's your earliest recollection of that?
Well, let me think about this. I got 3 older brothers, and they all deer hunted. And my dad deer hunted. He worked in a factory and farmed on the family farm part time. And the whole family has always been outdoors, whether it was coon hunting, deer hunting, coyote hunting, fox hunting, fishing in the Wabash River nearby. They're just always outdoors, So I think the first time I could remember going deer hunting, just tagging along, I think 1988 is when I can remember the first time going along. And I had green overalls on, and I had some strapped shoes. And I wore tennis shoes. My feet, I remember that day, froze.
You wore tennis shoes.
I wore tennis shoes that morning. I remember clearly because when your feet are that cold, you don't forget.
On a deer hunt.
On a deer hunt. And I sat there with my dad down in this bottom, and I remember my older brother Corey dropped me and my dad off. My brother, he was driving a Dodge Dart, an old Dodge Dart car, and that's what we deer hunted out of. That's why, that day we deer hunted out of a Dodge Dart because he dropped me and my dad off, and we went our way. And I don't remember where Corey went, but I remember getting there. We just sat on these treetops. It was a real good spot. My dad's always been a pretty good woodsman and always been out in the field, either farming or coyote hunting, fox hunting, all that coon hunting. And seemed like he'd always find a big deer somewhere. I don't know. Killing it is a different thing. I mean, that's everybody's struggle, I suppose. If it was that easy, you just go find one and kill it and be over. But we've seen, I remember, even by today's standards, I remember it was a pretty big deer, but the deer was just too far away to shotgun hunting only in Indiana. And this big deer came down the hill that morning, and he just didn't come by us. And I remember that clearly because we had some real generic binoculars, and I was looking through them, and I couldn't tell how many points the deer was. I mean, he wasn't no 20-pointer, but, I can't count points. Still to this day when I shoot a buck, I don't know how many points he has. I just know he's big. I'm not one of the guys that say, yeah, I think he's a 13-pointer. Well, why isn't he a 12 or a 14? I don't know. So you just know he's a shooter. But I know he's a big deer, but, I mean, that's the first recollection I can remember of actually going hunting.
Gotcha. So it's quite a long. It was not all that long ago, but you've got a strong recollection. And
that was in '88, I believe.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
So let's start talking a little bit about your strategies. The goal on this show, as we've said before, is to start dissecting world-class deer hunters. You have and engage in areas where there are big deer, point blank. You're in the mix constantly. How much time do you actually spend in the woods during the regular deer season?
Well, this is part of the story I'll save for the end on a memorable hunt, but I know when I hunted over in one of my spots on public in Kansas in 2014, I hunted 8 days that year. I only hunted 8 days. I did that on purpose because I thought, man, I'm just going to run some cameras and I'm going to just scout and hunt a lot harder that way. This scout and harder, I meant to say. And I was hunting public, and the reason I started hunting public the past couple of years is because I think public is the last pure form of hunting there's left. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with food plots or lease and all that, but for one, I don't have the money to lease land, and number two, food plot, I don't know, people have different opinions on it. I just thought public land would be the ultimate challenge, I guess is what I'm saying. It is the ultimate challenge to kill a big deer or a nice deer on public. So I would run all these draw cameras on public land in Kansas, and I didn't even padlock them. I just put a note in there that said, hey, I want my memory card back and my camera. I'll buy you a case of beer. And that's exactly the note I put in the camera when they opened the door. And I never once got a phone call. I always had the cameras there, and nobody ever took the card out.
Gotcha.
And the next year, though, I just started padlocking them. And I think maybe one of my cameras was taken. But I know that year I hunted 8 times, and I shot a doe, and I usually don't do this. I shot a doe the 2nd of November because a group of deer came in one morning, and they busted me. The wind had swirled in this bottom, and I shot this big doe like at 14 yards, and she piled up 35 yards later, and hunted her right an hour later. Nothing else came through. And then it would have been the 12th of November, I shot a buck off public, and I was done for the year. I just said, 2 deer is enough for me, and I was happy. And I didn't pick my bow back up the rest of the year. I hunted 8 days, and that was it.
Interesting. All right.
So, and then there's been years where I've hunted every day. I remember I was a senior in high school. I hunted like 80-some days in a 90-day season. I mean, it was every day. It was from school, go hunting. I mean, I didn't miss a day hardly, it seemed like.
Wow.
When you talk about public hunting ground, let's get into that a little bit. That's something that
I like it. I like doing it. I think it's a challenge. And I know there's big deer on there. There may not be as many big deer, but I know there's some big deer on public. That's why I'm interested in Ohio, because they got piles of public hunting land in Ohio. They've got a bunch.
Yeah, there's definitely some good public hunting land in Ohio. What sparks your interest about going to a piece of public ground to hunt on?
Like I was saying earlier, it's to me, it's an ultimate challenge to kill something off of public. It's a lot harder. It's like, I guess, and there's nothing against gun hunting. It's like comparing gun to bow. You would compare the gun to the bow, or the bow to the gun, because it's, I guess you got to be closer, so there's a little more challenge there. But then you could also say, I guess, if you had shooting a longbow compared to a compound, you take the training wheels off, it's going to be harder, But I don't know. Today's day and age, the way hunting's gone, it seems like some land is harder to get on, whether it's either leased up or it's hard to get permission. If knocking on doors, you can still go out and get permission. But I thought, well, there's public land. There's got to be some nice deer. I'm going to go just dig around and see what I can find. And I've seen some nice deer on public. I missed a real nice deer on public. I hate to say back the same. It's 2013. I missed a real good deer on public, and I had the deer. It was all but done. He was probably, I don't know what to say. He was 60, 70 class deer, 160, 170 class deer, and I told the story to some of my buddies, and they couldn't believe I even missed. But everybody misses, and I just blew half his back. I had to crouch down in the tree stand, and the deer just walked away. He came down this ridge one morning at 10 o'clock in the morning, and lo and behold, he was right in my lap. I just didn't finish. He's a real big deer.
Yeah, understandable. Okay, so let's say we're going into a piece of public land. What's some of the things that you look for to set up an area on a piece of public ground? Because, I mean, it's a whole different territory than private property.
Yeah.
Run us through how you pick an area that you're going to hunt on public.
Well, if it's big enough, for one, I'm going to see if it's got a creek or a river or a lake, something in there. Anytime you've got water, I think water helps funnel deer in certain directions. Some type of water gives you a barrier. Water gives you 2 things, a barrier, and it gives you the deer someplace to drink, of course.
Gotcha.
So 1 or 2 things that I've noticed on public, you're either going to walk a mile or 2 back in there, or you're going to hunt right off the road within, I'm talking 50 to 80 yards off the road. Because when you go in between, I would say most guys go 200 to 400 to 500 yards off the road, and they think they're doing good. The in-between ground, I think, is the worst to hunt. To me, it is.
Gotcha.
You're either going to walk in. There was many times. Well, when I shot my buck in 2014, it was a 40-minute walk back to my tree stand just to get back in there.
No kidding.
Yeah, and that was in Kansas. It was around the lake. I mean, it was a real neat spot. I knew I was going to kill something out of that tree. I just knew I was. It was a pretty cool hunt. It wasn't a giant deer. I was happy with it, though. Sometimes the biggest deer have the most boring stories, I should say. The biggest things.
Yeah. For sure. So you walked back in. What made you get back in so far? What drawed you to the area where you set your tree stand up at? Tell us about the area.
The spot that I'll talk about that buck I killed on public. He actually wasn't a giant deer, but on public he's probably a pretty nice deer because he's pressured more. He's probably 130-inch 8.9, and I was going to the store now. It's pretty funny. So I shot that doe, and it was pretty far back in there. She was a pretty big mature doe. I shot her the 2nd of November, which I've not shot a doe in November since 1996. That's been many years, ago when I was just shooting deer just to shoot deer with the bow. I mean, just to kill deer with the bow was an accomplishment. So when I started stepping up more, going after bucks and bigger bucks. So shot that doe, and then I must have been around Halloween. I'd walk back into this public real deep, and I look at my phone a lot, just looking at aero maps and Google Earth and all that. And I thought, well, and I had a couple of big deer on trail camera in Velvet, but I'd never seen them there on public around this lake. And got back into one day, and I purposely thought, well, I'm going to take and put this stand. I'm going to walk right through this big ridge went up in a tabletop, and it was pretty thick up there. And I said, I'm going to go in there and purposely blow these deer out of there. If they're in there, I'll know they're in there. And I went in there, and right when I got on top of this tabletop, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 deer blew out of there, and I put the stand up and got out of there and didn't go back until 2 weeks later. And I was working a job at the time, 12-hour shift, 7 in the evening to 7 in the morning. So I got off work at 7 in the morning, ran by the gas station, got a big Mountain Dew, and said, well, it's the run. It's the 12th of November. It was a year to the day that I missed that big one on the same public, but up the road a little bit. A year to the day. It's so ironic. So I said, this time of year, you've just got to be out there in the woods. The rut was really starting to get fired up hard. And like I said, got up to work at 7 in the morning. Hadn't had no sleep at all after work, but I got my stand. By the time I got over there and got in my stand, it was 9:46, and it was pretty cold that morning. And I shot this buck that I ended up killing like at 11. I think 11:06 I killed him, and I didn't want to stand that long. The walk, like I said, back into there, this was a pretty far walk back in there and all. Funny thing about that, when it came by, it just happened so quick. I looked up, and here it came, and sometimes, I don't know, I guess when it happens quick, they look bigger. I thought it was a little bit bigger than it was, and still a nice deer. But I drew back, chip shot, 15 yards, completely missed him when he was walking. Completely missed him. So then I grabbed another arrow with a scramble, and I kept my composure up to grab another arrow, and I thought, man, the first thing I thought when I missed, I thought, my buddies are never going to believe me that I missed him. So I luckily grabbed another arrow real quick, drew back, and I gave out a big bleat to him, and he was on that rut walk, and I couldn't even hardly stop him. He paused just a minute, though, but he's still walking a little bit, kind of, just slowed down, and I hit him there just a tad back, but the angle was good. It drove it up to the knock, and he did a little bit of a hunch, and hung my bow up, looked in binoculars, and he just walked away. And I've had 2 deer in all my years of bow hunting do that. He just kind of walked away, and I gave him about an hour. Called a good buddy of mine up in Wisconsin. Said, well, I shot him pretty nice. Went over actually. Here's a kicker. I went over and checked the trail camera of mine on that same ridge, and I have a adapter for my Galaxy phone that I can check my trail cam pictures right on my phone, and I can send them to Facebook or text to people and whatever. I can look at my trail cam pictures right on my phone. Mm-hmm. So I get back there and pull up those and just killing time to wait for that deer to expire. And I look up through the trail cam pictures, and there's about a mid-140s 8-point or so. It looked like an 8-point working a scrape 5 days earlier on that same ridge. I was like, gosh. But I was like, so I tracked that buck down, and the one that I did end up killing. He went about 150 yards, and I was happy with it. He's a pretty cool deer. That was a fun hunt. I mean, I look back at that and just kind of laugh and just think, well, you never know, especially that time of year. I mean, just as long as you're in the woods, and in a good spot, and it was a ways back there. I mean, I could have got there quicker if I had a boat, but the way I had entered it that evening or that midday or mid-morning, it took me a while to get back in there, but
right. So just I'm gonna run you through a little bit of gear check. So you say that you make enough to keep afloat. What's the guy on the budget hunt with? Tell us about your setup. What are you shooting?
That year, I changed bows too often. That year, this is funny too, because I used to buy a brand new Hoyt or Matthews every year, and they're awesome bows. They're all good bows, elite, all of them. And I'd spend $1,000 or more on a bow. That year in 2014. I bought a Bowtech, never owned a Bowtech, bought a Bowtech off eBay, and they said the price or best offer. I offered them $250, and they took it, and that's the bow that I hunted with, a $250 Bowtech, and it killed deer just fine.
That's a good point.
It was a bow that I wanted to use. It was a public land hunter's bow. It was a consummate public land bow hunter's bow, I told people. So I gave it to I sold it to my buddy, because his girlfriend wanted to get in the bow hunt, and I said, yeah, I'll sell you that bow. And I really liked it. It was a bare knuckles, no frills bow. Even when I was shooting the expensive bows, I'd still sometimes put a whiskey biscuit on the bow, and that's what I hunt with, just because there's no failure. They're not going to break. They're not going to let you down. And I've shot followers. I've shot Q80s and ripcords and all of them. They're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. But that bow I set up pretty cheap that year. I think total that whole bow I had $400 and some in. The whole bow to the stand, $440. And you can't even touch a bow for that anymore. That's a down payment on a bow nowadays.
Right. Gotcha.
And I don't know. I don't have a bow. No, I stole my bow I had last year, and I'll probably pick something up eventually. And I'm going to go the cheap route probably again, because it's never the bow. It never is. It took me a long time to realize that. My dad would always get on me about it. He said, "Why don't you keep a bow and learn to shoot it?"
Right.
It's the truth.
Right. Cameron, can we go back for a second into something you said about trying to pick your spot? And you had mentioned that it's either next to the road or a ways out. So what is it about the middle that's not so good, and what is it about the stuff that's close to the road that's good? You mentioned that you got kind of far in there and were able to find a plateau where the deer were bedded down, it sounds like. But what was it about the middle stuff and the edge of the road that is so attractive?
Well, the middle stuff is, I had just found out that it seemed like to me, I guess maybe it might be hard to explain it. The middle stuff, it just seemed like that's where the majority of people, just through my own observations, that's where the majority of people had, they would walk that far. That's where I'd seen the most tree stands. That's where I'd seen the most human sign, I should say. And right next to the road, I guess there's two things that are good right next to the road or within 100 yards of the road. I don't know. It seems like over the years I've seen some people kill some big deer not far from the road, because they've got to cross the road at some point. They've got to come through there at some point. If you can find a funnel or good crossing with a crossing road, you can do pretty good. And another thing that we're close to the road, if you don't have a lot of time, there's your spot to hunt pretty quick. If you get off work one evening and you need a quick spot to hunt, you don't have to go in that deep. So I wouldn't say I've killed a lot of deer or many deer on public that are close to the road, but I know it's good. I know it is for sure, because at some point they've got to cross that. But the middle ground, I don't know. I didn't spend a lot of time there. I was going clear back as deep as I could go.
Okay.
But then if everybody's going clear back and as deep as they can go, then, if you're going back that far, then everybody's going to start going back that far. I remember a bow hunter I read about out of Ohio one time. They hunted a lot of public. I think he's out of, I don't know what, I'll probably say this wrong, Irontown possibly, or his name's Mike Dickus, I believe. They own a big archery shop there in Ohio. And I think he said one time that he does not hunt very far off the road. And I remember him saying that, or read that somewhere at one point. And I thought, yeah, it makes sense. It really does make sense that to not go too far off the road and go back in that deep. Because eventually maybe everybody will start going deep, So you just got to kind of find what's going on. Every public's probably different. Probably is.
So when you're hunting public land, it's not only hunting the deer, but it's trying to hunt opposite of where the hunters are. So
I'll tell you I'm sorry for interrupting. Keep going.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll tell you the biggest piece of advice I can probably give you that I have learned on public, and everybody's going to probably just start doing this now when I tell you. The biggest piece of advice, and it was hard for me to do, and I done it. And this has happened 2 years in a row, and my work schedule allowed it, and I know not everybody can do this. But when I hunted public, I don't care if it was the peak of the rut, and I don't care if it was a perfect day and I thought it was awesome. I did not, and I will not hunt a weekend on public. That was my most important thing that I done. But I firmly believe if you hunt the weekdays and you hunt in nasty weather, you will do way better. Gotcha. I would drive down by this public, and some days there was 10 trucks down there. I would go there on the weekdays, and I was the only truck there. And I will promise you, the deer know that just like I knew that.
That's a very, very good point. Great observation.
That's such a key. And it didn't take long for me to figure that out. And I said, I'm not hunting the weekend. I don't care. I would sleep in and whatever, go to town, go do whatever. But I did not hunt a weekend. Just refused to.
That makes total sense when you put it like that. But you're right. Public land that's getting hammered hard. You should go where they ain't, basically. You know. And when I say where they ain't, they is the hunters.
That goes back to the close to the road. There's a lot of guys will not hunt that close to the road because they think that road affects the deer travel. But look how many big deer get hit on the road during the rut. And I know, granted, there are probably some of them at nighttime, but there's times some deer cross that road broad daylight, and nobody's hunting there close to the road where you're allowed to. Just nobody's going to do it.
Gotcha.
But I mean, they've got to cross at some point. You would think. Right. And I guess the walking in so deep, man, it's a heck of a workout. I don't take all the stuff in with me I don't carry a backpack full of stuff like Santa Claus would carry. I'm a real basic guy. I take a pocket knife, my license, and a little fanny pack, and go. And sometimes I carry my stand-ins, Sometimes I wouldn't. I'd just leave my stand there overnight or go put her up, with the sticks and leave it. But I would just take what was necessary to get the job done is what I would take.
Okay, the minimum requirements. So
minimum requirements. I think you can take so much stuff with you that you're there sitting in the tree and you're screwing this in and putting this up, or it's a lot. It's a lot. It really is.
Right. It can be a lot of distractions and a lot of extra weight you don't need.
Oh yeah.
So when you're hunting, are your primary style, is it bow hunting out of a stand? Is that generally your method?
Yeah, I like a stand off the ground. I do some. I've killed a couple of deer off the ground. Off the ground is a lot of fun. I would say one more step up from public ground is probably off the ground on public. If I had to say, it was even harder. But and I have hunted off the ground and, like I said, killed some deer. And but every spot's different. In some spots there's no stand, no trees right off the stand, then I'm going to go off the ground. Or there's been times over the years on private ground or something in public that I've during the rut, like if it's really hot out or if it's really rainy, I'm just going to go start. And I call it walk around, but I'm not out there just aimlessly walking around. I'm just kind of, I guess you'd call it skill hunt, or just moving from spot to spot. And I've got up on some nice deer doing that over the years. It's not for everybody, but it does work. You can do it, especially during the rut. It seems like when the bucks are not fully aware of the surroundings as well. I mean, you can easily do it.
Gotcha. Let's say we're not in a rut hunt. We're early season. Is there anything that you use to decide when to hunt? For example, you had mentioned that you try to not hunt on weekends in public because that's when all the hunters are there. What if it's midweek? It's not during the rut. It's not a good. I mean, it's always a good time to be in the woods, but it's not the ideal, stereotypical time to be in the woods. What do you use? Do you look at solunar charts? Do you have you look at fronts, weather? What makes you decide to go when you go?
Well, next to time. I mean, time's the most important thing. I would say, this might sound silly. A lot of times I hunt on hunches if I just think that I can. And a hunch is derived probably from just spending time in the woods and knowing where to be. I mean, that's how I describe what a hunch is on deer hunting. And if I got a lot of deer using the food source early in the season, I want to be someplace fairly in the proximity of it. A good bow hunter I knew years ago out of Illinois, he always told me every deer that I'd point to on his wall, and he had a lot of Pope young deer, and finally killed his Boone and Crockett last year before he died. Every time I pointed to a deer on his wall, I said, "Tell me the story on this one. Tell me the story on this one." He'd say, "Well, that morning or that evening, I was in or near a thick brush." Every time, every one of his deer. He never did once say, "Man, that evening I was on the edge of the field and he came right up in that field and I shot him," because that's not real. He never told me that ever.
Right.
He was the most probably real world bow hunter I ever met, and he always liked the thick stuff. If he wasn't in it, he was near it. And it makes sense. I mean, they feel comfortable there. They're safe there. They can't be harassed. They can't be bothered.
Right. Okay.
So
when you're setting up on a thick spot, all right.
Yeah.
Thick stuff is great for holding deer.
Yeah.
Not necessarily arrow friendly, right?
What's that?
It's not an arrow friendly area generally.
No.
So
not generally, no.
How do you set up off or within a thick spot to make sure you can get a good kill shot?
A lot of times there's some directional pattern of an entry or exit of every thick area. There's some type of directional pattern where they're going to either come in or go out or utilize it in some way. So I just want to be there where I can at least shoot, I would say, 20 yards, where I can cover an area around me 20 yards in every direction. But that goes back to scouting, like this time of year. I mean, spend a lot of time out there and just kind of look around and like I said, see where you need to be, where you think your stand needs to be, or where you need to be set up, depending on the cover that's around you. And like I said, there's been times I've shot some deer that I wasn't in the thick stuff, but I was always pretty close to it. It was always in the neighborhood.
Okay, so sometimes it's you're picking these areas to gain a good shot. Even though you're close or in it, you're still going to be able to take a good shot. So let's transition out of the deer season. I mean, deer hunting really if you're a good hunter, to me, and as we've learned on the show, is that hunting is really all year round. The actual season that you're going to hunt is only a certain time, but gaining knowledge of your surroundings and the areas you're going to hunt and learning where they travel when you're not carrying a weapon of any sort, that can sometimes be your most effective strategies. At least that's my opinion. What have you decided when it comes to the other months that aren't part of the season? What do you do then?
Well, like shed hunting, shed hunting's really no different than hunting a big deer, because a lot of times some of the better sheds I found, or I've been around that buddies have found, they're going to probably they're near that thick stuff, and you don't hear it sounds like a broken record, I know, but in or near that thick brush is that's where it starts. That's the starting point. That's where, to me, that's my style. That's how I work. If I was going to a totally new farm anywhere in the Midwest or anywhere even where the whitetail are, I want to find where the thickest, nastiest place is, because at some point there's going to be a big deer in there somewhere. I just know he is. He's going to be using that in some way. And that can be said the same for sheds or just where a deer likes to stay up. They just don't like to be harassed. I mean, they just don't want to be bothered. A lot of people never see these deer. They talk about a big deer that they've seen once or twice, and then they never see him. Well, they're probably holed up someplace in some thicket or some swamp or someplace you just never would even think to go. So, like March, like right now, looking for sheds, I would say I'm going to look someplace where the deer is going to be probably pretty close to where he was staying during hunting season. I mean, because that's where I want to be hunting this next fall. Usually, these are the stuff that you want to keep tabs on, and this time of the year, then come fall, that's where you want to be hunting, and you won't be too far off base, I wouldn't think. But
gotcha. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of your other strategies as far as like the windage, scent control, things like that. What types of things do you pay attention to during the season?
Years ago, a neighbor bow hunter back in Indiana, he would, when I was a kid in high school, I remember, and my brother told me this, and then I got to know him pretty well and still keep in touch with him. And he would always, he'd always tell us to put in our hunting clothes in a plastic bag. He used baking soda. That's where it started. That was our first scent control is baking soda. So I would always get out there and be hunting, and all this white powder would be coming off my hunting clothes.
Right.
And so then it went from there. Then it went to some products like Hunter Specialty, where you had these Earth Fresh wafers. And then, I mean, there's just been like an evolution of scent control from the Hunter Specialty scent wafers to fast forward now, you got ozonics. And I don't use ozonics. And I got buddies that just swear by them. They say they're awesome. But I've never used one, so I can't say. But after I got older and bow hunting more and talked to some real successful hunters over the years, they'd get off work and go back to the guy in Illinois that I met. He was a boilermaker or pipe fitter type guy, and he'd say, man, he said, I'll just be sweating and stinking when I get off work. And he said, I had 15 minutes of work left, I'd still go hunting. But more importantly, he'd say his stands are 20, 25 feet up, and then he'd stay up in spots where the wind would try to blow over him, or the deer couldn't quite wind him. What I mean by that, where they just can't quite wind you, but it's close. You're just like playing with fire almost, where they're almost going to wind you, but not quite. But here's what I've always said about scent. And I ain't got nothing wrong with scent as far as people spraying down before that. You see them on these shows spraying down their hat or their boots and everything. I've always said the best scent is no scent at all. And that's how I take it. And it sounds real basic, I know. My whole approach to it over the years has been to simplify it. I get more simplified every year, I think.
Okay.
And I just take it that way. The best sense, no scent at all. Because I know it's probably hard to understand.
No, I think it makes sense in a lot of ways. So you're more of a let's eliminate every bit of what the deer knows to be of me. You're trying to get rid of your scent. You're trying to get rid of your movement. You're trying to become invisible, as opposed to adding some kind of something into your mix that would either cover scent it or anything like that. I mean, deer are curious by nature anyway. There's been some products. I know some of the products out there over the years smell like vanilla extract, and I think you can just go buy vanilla extract and pour out there, and they'd probably smell it or come to it. But I'm not going to say you want to make a vanilla extract drag line to your tree stand and expect a big deer to show up there, because you might be sitting there a long time. Right.
But
Gotcha.
And stuff happens, you know. I mean, there's always the luck factor, you know, and there's a lot of luck in hunting, a lot of luck.
Yeah.
But I guess the biggest thing I do is just try to, I mean, it's like everything, like everybody else does, just watch the wind. But if you think you got, a lot of times if the wind's blowing from the deer to you, I don't think that's a very good wind to hunt. I really don't. I don't like it. Because the deer can't check anything when it's coming to you. I mean, I've heard that. You'll hear that from a lot of successful bow hunters. That if the deer is blowing from the deer to me, how can that deer? It can smell anything behind him, but what good is that to him if he's coming to me and he don't know I'm there? So,
right.
I mean, that's what you got to think of too. And I've shot some deer out of stands that are 8 feet high to 28 feet high. So every location's different, every spot and every situation's different. Is what I've learned over the years. But I don't say that I use a lot of spraying down or anything, because I don't. I haven't seen a difference in my sightings or encounters going up or down. I wouldn't say if I've used it or not used it.
Gotcha. Okay.
I can't owe it on one product, I should say, you know.
Right. So you mentioned that you look at different heights of deer stands, anywhere from 8 feet to 28 feet.
Yeah.
How do you decide how high a stand needs to go?
Well, covers a lot of it, and if the tree will, as long as I'm not silhouetted up there, or if I'm down in I shot a buck in eastern Iowa back in '08, and I was down this little valley, or about down this little bottom, and I was in, they don't make them, but I was in one of those tree saddles one morning, and it was a good spot. There was a lot of trails in there crossing in this thick draw. And I remember that morning I took my rangefinder, and I hardly use a rangefinder, and I should more, but I took my rangefinder and pointed it to the ground, and it said 11 yards.
Right.
And if you do the math, I mean, that tells you how high I was up. And the only reason I was up so high, for one, that's the only limb that I could stand on and use that tree saddle. And two, I was in this bottom, and if I would have been lower, they would have came down over the hill and seen me. It probably was not an ideal tree or setup, but it worked. It worked to where, you know, I was successful that morning. But and then this past season, I was up in the spot where I had big mature does and little bucks walk right below my tree that I was in, because it's the only tree on the fence where I could set up there. And I got video of it on my phone. I just never posted it yet, but I got video on my phone. I could have took my boot and kicked the deer in the rack. He was that close. And
wow.
He didn't even have a care. and I'm sitting there. I'll tell you this much. When I took the stand down, when I was done hunting today, when I took the stand down, I stood on the ground and undone the ratchet strap. And
wow.
I'm only 5'10", and I'm only 5'10", 6 foot with boots on.
Wow. Oh wow.
So,
no kidding. So
I mean,
you were hardly off the ground.
Yeah, back cover is big. Is real big. You don't want to be in a telephone pole type tree, and there's nothing wrong with this. Is going to feed into climbing tree stand. I've killed deer at a climbing tree stand, but I've used them in about 15 years. Well, that's the only problem I got with climbing tree stands. They're great that they're mobile and you can go a lot of places, but they are terrible that you have to go on a tree that's a telephone pole. It has no cover, no brush. It's not very big. I want to be in a tree that's about a size about as wide as I am in my body. If I can't, then I'll do the best I can just to have something to break up my outline, you know.
Okay.
But that was a lot of fun hunting when I was that close to the ground. It was an up and close experience this past fall.
Wow. Okay. So when you're picking out a tree, and you're trying to find one that's fairly thick, and you're eliminating basically your climbing stands, because those I mean, for that wide, it's may not be the best suited for a climber. What type of stands are you using specifically to get into these big, wide, thick trees?
Well, any type of hang-on stand will work as long as you get a longer strap. If the straps aren't long enough, I'll just go buy a long ratchet strap and put 2 of them on there. They got to have enough load rating that it'll definitely hold me. I'm not worried about that. But any type of hang-on stand, any brand of hang-on will work pretty good.
Okay.
But the biggest thing also, even if the tree is pretty wide or big, I like to go on the back side of the tree. That way I've got to stand up in my tree if I have to. A lot of times, though, I don't have to. Like I said, it just depends. I want that tree to be my block. I want that tree to block me in the line of sight of the deer. So I will put the stand on the back side of the tree, wherever that may be, instead of just hanging out there out in the blue off the side of the tree. I want it on the back side. It helps quite a bit, I think.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. Before we get into your deer hunt, I'd like to have Dusty kind of walk us through the deer hunt with you. There is a picture on your Facebook page that is your cover photo, and it's a fascinating photo. You're looking at the camera, and in your left hand, you're covered in camouflage. You're wearing some yellow protective eyeglass wear. You have in your left hand what looks or appears to be maybe a 150 class rack, and then over your back shoulder, holding on with your right hand, you're carrying what appears to be half of a carcass of a fairly large buck that you're dragging through some kind of a cattle pen with a lot of black steers of some sort, just kind of looking at you, scared to death, and you're looking at the camera like, hey, this is no big deal. This is what I do every day. So what's going on in that picture?
Well, it's kind of been a tradition, me and a buddy, and Sub and I, when we shed hunt every year together. It's been going on probably the past 3-4 years now, and I'll probably be doing that actually with him here in a couple of days. But anyway, it was real cold. That picture's probably, I have to look at the date on my phone, 3 or 4 years old maybe. I'm not sure exactly.
It says February 17th, 2013. So about 3 years.
Okay. So like I said, we annually go shed hunt together, and he said he had this spot, we'll go check out. I said, okay. But we're not spread apart too far, and the way the world is now, we got cell phones. So long story short, I was walking down this ditch, and I looked up, and there this dead buck was, and I called him on the cell phone and said, hey, I found a nice buck. And you were right. The one that I'm holding in my hand, that's my buddy. He found a nice one. The one on my back was an equal size, and the only reason it was on the carcass like that, we couldn't get the head off of the carcass.
Oh, wow. So you just picked up the whole body and threw it over your back shoulder.
Yeah. And I, like I said, I'm into photography, I guess. And I told him, I said, take some cool pictures. I said, to see what you can snap off here real quick on some pictures. But we found those shed hunting that day. I mean, it was pretty fun to find them both like that. But I mean, we found them about the same time, because as soon as I called him on my cell phone, he said, yeah, I got one probably just as big. I said, whatever. Two 150s,
right.
Both dead, and there was a lot of cattle in that section that day, and they just happened to be in the background. It was just kind of one of those accident pictures. That picture's kind of accidental, like my profile picture is hanging off the bridge. I tell you, I bow fish a lot.
Yeah.
That's how I hang off the bridge to shoot the fish. And my buddy took a picture one day, and just kind of accident, and that's how it happened. But no, the yellow glasses I was wearing that day, just walking through some of the brush just to keep so it wouldn't poke my eye or something. And then it makes it pop a little bit. You can see stuff a little bit better with that tint, I've learned. But I wouldn't say that that's a requirement to go shed hunt, just wear yellow tinted glasses. I mean, I'll be wearing my eyeglasses. I wear contacted glasses. I've been wearing my glasses past several months. But no, it's a fun day as far as picking up antlers that day.
That's a good shed hunting experience right there. That's a good fun.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. A lot of people see that picture and they say, that's such a cool picture. I said, I just thought it was a picture. I didn't think it was that special, but
I think this picture, Dusty, rivals the living room buck photo.
Yeah, for sure.
The one that Mike Burham, they're out of Ohio.
Mike Berman, yep.
Yeah.
That 216. Like I said, I know silly numbers and whatever, so I don't forget stuff when I read it and see it. So yeah, that was a real cool picture of that guy. And, that'll never be equal again. I've seen some guys try to do it, but I mean, once you're the originator, you know.
Right.
You can't say, well, I'm going to try to do that too, because after that, people have already seen it. So what's the care?
That's right.
Probably one of the cooler cover photos I've seen. A guy walking through a cattle pasture with two big monster bucks in his hand, one half a deer on his back.
Right.
It was so cold that day that we couldn't. It was so frozen cold. I didn't have a saw or knife on there, nothing to, So I mean, that's what happened with that, though. But
That's awesome. Are you a rubber boots kind of guy going in and out of the woods?
What run that by me again?
A rubber boots kind of guy? Do you have to have?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like rubber boots. Is it mandatory? I don't know. I would probably say ever since I've been bowhunting, I've worn rubber boots just because that's what, in quotations, they told me to wear, you know. But I know there's some guys that kill a lot of good stuff that wear just regular hiking boots or work boots. But I don't think rubber boots are 100% scent-free. I really don't. You can spray them down all you want. They're not going to be scent-free. I mean, I don't know how to take that as far as that's a matter of opinion, I guess. But I know every year I've got a pair of rubber boots or some sort of boots like that I like to wear.
Okay.
A lot of times when I'm getting close to my stand, and this sounds silly too, another thing I'll do, if I got a trail or two that I've got to cross, I'm holding my bow or something. I'm like hopping and skipping. I'll jump like 3 or 4 feet. I'll try and just leap across 3 or 4 feet because I know from hunting over the years when a coyote, and a coyote's a pretty wary animal, a coyote hits my boot track. I don't care if I got rubber boots on or not. As soon as a coyote hits my boot print, it's like he hit an invisible force field. He turns around on a dime and gets out of there.
Right.
Just like that. And I know if a big deer comes in there or a deer's got some age or experience to him, he's going to do the same thing. So I try to just kind of mix up my foot pattern. It sounds silly, I guess, but I don't just stumble along and say, I'm just going to purposely plant my foot right in this deer trail or step right here where I think a deer's going to stand. But it's something I think about sometimes, you know, if I can. But entry and exit's real important. I'll walk in. I mean, everybody knows you should probably, if you got a creek around, walk up the creek or something, or things like that to keep a low profile and just keep your scent and your feet clean and like that. But
sure, no, that makes total sense. So let's go on a deer hunt with you, Cameron. I'm going to have Dusty lead the charge here and kind of walk us through play by play. Let's go on your most memorable deer hunt, and Dusty, go ahead and take it from here.
Yeah, where are we going to go on this most memorable deer hunt?
Well, since I already told you about the Kansas hunt, I'm going to take you guys back to, it's the funny one. I'm going to take you back probably to, let me see, 1991. It's long ago, I know.
Oh, we're going way
1991,
back.
Yeah.
Old school, all right. Old school.
Yeah, old school. This is back when I was a gun hunter. And
where are we headed?
like I said, Carroll County, Indiana.
Carroll County, Indiana. You got a date? You got a date in mind? What time of year was it?
This is Carroll County, Indiana, November 17th, 1991, second day of Indiana shotgun season.
Wow, you're on that. You're on the dates. Wow.
I tell you, I could sit here and entertain you guys all night with numbers and dates, probably. But anyway, I'll rewind a second. That summer, my brother, my second oldest brother, and the neighbor friend, and my other brother Casey, that's older than me, we went out that summer and built tree stands. We each built our tree stands. We were going to start bow hunting, or just deer hunting stands. Kelly was getting into bow hunting a little more, and so was his friend. And Casey did a little bit too. So I think that whole summer back in our woods, we built, we built roughly 4 or 5 deer stands.
What do you build?
Maybe 4.
What are you building them with?
We built them out of wood and nails, and nail them up in trees.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah.
That was old school days, and so we built my brother Kelly's first, built Casey's, then built John's. And we're coming out, and I told them basically, and I was only 12 years old, man, and I said, where's my tree stand? So they built me one that was in, there used to be an old stand in these trees, so we just kind of refashioned it up. And I said, okay, that'll work. And it's in this long draw that left the woods, a real thick area, a lot of saplings. And I didn't hunt the opening day shotgun. I hunted a different spot. So long story short, I get to the spot one morning and somehow managed to get up in the tree. I couldn't find it. I wouldn't say that I was afraid of the dark, but I didn't have a flashlight to where I could. Back then, things were a little different. I remember I was like a dozer going through the woods to try and find it because my brother Casey and the neighbor guy John were going off in their own direction, and they weren't too far away. They were probably, several hundred yards, 300-400 yards away. And I had this real generic little watch on it. I remember I was up in the tree. It was real windy that morning. Had a single shot Stevens 20-gauge shotgun. And I'd only killed 1 deer ever in my life the year before. This is all my own, totally sitting in the tree. I was 12 years old, and I looked up. back to my east. I heard a stick break, and I thought, man, I said, it's so cold. I'm going to get down to 15 minutes. I'm just freezing. I heard a stick break, and I looked back about 20 yards. Here come this buck walking. And I remember this, it was like slow motion. I remember picking the gun up, cocking the hammer back, and he walked by. He might have been 5 yards if he's a mile, you know. He was that close. And when I shot him there, it dropped him, but then I started hooping and hollering and celebrating. And he got up, and he might have went, I don't know, 80 yards, but I remember climbing down to my stand and running over to him, and he was laying there. I shot him again, and about the time my brother and the neighbor guy almost ruined the hunt because they were coming up towards me as this was going on, and they got up there to me, and they were like, "What's Cameron shooting at?" And I got up there, and he's a nice deer for back in days. He's right on 140-inch mainframe 9-point, and couldn't have been. That probably set the spark on the big deer, you know. And I thought, man, this is a lot of fun. And I mean, by today's standards, you know, he's not a big deer, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, that's one I remember real well. I'll never forget, probably.
Wow, very cool story.
Awesome story, man. That's really good.
And it was a spot where no one had messed around with, no one had hunted, and just kind of out of the blue like that. And funny thing is, a year later, opening day shotgun, I was back in the same stand and shot 135-inch 10-point, same stand.
Wow.
So
you found
it was a lot of fun. That tree was there for a while. I mean, the third year, I almost went for the hat trick, but the third year, this buck was actually a little bit far from a single shot smoothbore shotgun.
Gotcha.
And I shot him, and I hit him low in the brisket, and I was only maybe 15 then, and I ended up losing that deer. So
gotcha.
That was probably my fault that it happened. It was like 56 yards. That's another thing I always tell my buddies. I said, I've never killed a white-tailed deer over 50 yards. 52 yards is the furthest I've ever killed a deer, gun or bow.
Why do you think that is? Your setup is so good that you can get close enough?
Oh, shot selection. I'm not out there throwing haymakers, I guess, or just being fortunate to be in the right spot.
Okay.
I mean, if I had a muzzle loader that shot 100 or 200 yards, I might shoot a deer that far, but I like to get them close. I like the aspect of being close and personal with the animal, you know?
Sure.
That's what I like.
Sure.
I guess that's where it stems from with that, but I've never killed, just to make it an even number, I say I've never killed a deer past 50 yards, and I haven't. And I've deer hunted, 22, 24 years, something like that, you know?
Wow.
And I've never shot a deer past that yardage.
So over the 22 years, you've hunted plenty of stands. Can you wear a stand out? Can you overhunt a stand?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of guys will tell you that, but we had a stand, you know, back when we were in seniors in high school, my brother was a freshman in college. We had this one spot, and it's kind of there, but not really there anymore. We had this one spot that we called Down Over the Hill. And we were smart about stuff back then. We just didn't know it, I don't think, because it was me, my brother Casey, and my buddy Bob, and all three of us kind of made a pact. We said, we're not hunting this spot down over the hill until November 1st. It's because we had about 12 to 14 days, depending on when shotgun came in Indiana. And we knew that 2 weeks right before gun was going to be the best. And we hunted that stand. It was just a tree we stood in. Actually, it was an L-shaped tree. We climbed up this tree. It was about 10 feet off the ground. And we'd stand up in this tree, and it was in some thick, nasty stuff. But you could go down there every day and get a shot at a nice buck. I know. I hunted it the day after my brother shot a buck and saw 5 different bucks. I mean, it's just a neat spot. Sometimes you get lucky in your deer hunting life and find good spots like that, and where it never fails. But I think you can out or overhunt a spot. My dad has a different theory. He says, well, you should keep hunting the same spot. He's old school.
Right.
He said you should. He said, I think you should just keep hunting the same spot. He's got some logic to it, but he says keep going to the same spot because how are you ever going to you're never going to be there if that deer comes by there if you keep bouncing around. And there is some logic to that. You can't just throw darts, you know. I mean, you can't play musical chairs per se, you know. During the rut, if I got a hunch or just feel like it's right, I'll hunt the same stand 3 days in a row and don't think twice about it.
Gotcha.
I'll keep going back to it. The reason I do it during the rut because you can get away with a little bit more. You get different deer cruising through. It ain't like you're hunting them on a early season or late season food source hunts. you're looking for cruisers basically, or deer that are just not going to ever come back by there maybe a week later or more, if they do at all.
Okay. So of the states you've hunted Indiana, you've hunted Kansas,
yep.
Iowa,
yep,
Illinois,
yes,
yep. Any
South
other?
Dakota also.
South Dakota. Okay. So those are your primary hunting grounds. You haven't made it to Ohio yet, but you're getting there.
I think I'm going to probably try to do Ohio this fall. I'd like to. I've been looking at it a lot and talking to some people, and I don't know. I just like to see what it's like, just to be over there and around it, even if I don't shoot nothing. I mean, I just want to see what it's like. That way I can compare it to. I guess I got to try just so I know.
Okay.
Just so I know what it's like.
Makes sense. All right. So are you ready for a 10 rapid fire questions here, Cameron?
I will do my best. I don't know how fast I'm going to rapid fire back. But
That's okay. All right. We'll take it easy on you this time.
Okay.
All right. Of all the hunting tips you've ever encountered in your life, what's the number one hunting tip of all time?
Oh, have fun.
That's awesome. That's a good one.
No, what you want to hear? No, I would say the number one hunting tip, and it sounds like a broken record. And the guy that I always looked up to a lot, and he died a few years ago. In or near thick brush, always. That stuck with me. If I remember one thing from that man or from anybody I've ever hunted with or been around, in or near thick brush.
In or near thick brush. I like that one a lot. Actually, I think that's really smart.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
We all go into the woods. You said you're kind of a minimalist when it comes into the stuff you bring into the woods. But we all have these things, and it probably is excess, and we don't technically need it if you really look at it. But there's probably one or two things that you bring in the woods with you that you bring just to bring. That probably has no use whatsoever other than good luck or something of that nature. And if it drives you nuts if you leave it in the truck and you feel naked without it. What's that one thing for you?
This is going to sound crazy, but I don't care if it's 80 degrees in early October, because I don't wear gloves even in December bow hunting. So I always have one of those hand muffs on, like the NFL players wear, the hand warmer muffs.
Sure, yeah, totally understand that.
I've always got that thing around my waist, and I like the one with the zipper in the top because that's where I put my cell phone, or that's where I put my release. So the one with the zipper tops, that's a must. I've got to have one of those around my waist. It's like wearing. It's almost like I feel naked, like I've got my pants on without a belt. Is what I feel like. Because I've always got someplace to put my hands when I'm resting them, or just put some of my little knick-knack gear. I mean, I've got very little things that I need to carry, but I like that muff. I've had one of those on me for 20 years probably. I've always had one of those.
Oh wow! All right. So
I like them. I do. I look them over and think, man, I need this one, and I don't have a lot of them, but I'm upset if I don't have one. I'll say that.
Yeah, no, I got like my hand muff. I'll give you that. I definitely I have one that I bring with me that I really enjoy. All right, so you referenced a few times during this interview that you've read something. You've read about one person doing this or one person doing that. Do you have a particular go-to book that you reference to for studies of the whitetail woods, things that you use to make yourself a better hunter, or do you maybe magazines or things like that? What do you use for reference?
As far as advice,
or advice you read about, things that you look to in print.
I always looked up to and got to meet and know a little bit Miles Keller, and I always tried to emulate what he does. Okay. So if there's an article about Miles Keller somewhere, I'm going to read it and take it to heart. I'm going to say, if he says do this, then give it a shot. But there's a lot of different ways to hunt a deer. There really is a lot of different places to hunt a deer. So I would just say keep an open mind. I like to read a lot of different stuff about it.
Okay.
As far as glory stories, they're fun to read, but I don't know if you'll get much out of them as far as how to do it. You're going to get a lot of it how to be lucky, but I don't know if you're going to get a lot out of how to do it.
Right on.
But
I dig that. That's cool. All right, so you're off at a convention somewhere, maybe a shed hunting convention or ATA archery convention, whatever it is. You're staying at a hotel. You're in the hotel lobby. You get in the elevator, and as a stranger walks in, you strike up a conversation, and he asks you, "What do you do?" What do you do for a living? What do you say to that?
I survive.
You're a survivor.
I'm a survivor. that's a question girls ask me sometimes when I get to know them. Like, what do you do for a living?
Right. Well, they want to know,
and
right?
They want to know. As we get older, it's more important, like to tell people what you do.
Right. So, do you tell tell the stranger in the elevator the same answer that you tell the girl at the bar?
I think so. I just tell them I'm a grunt. Yeah, I really do.
Okay.
I really do.
All right. Fair enough.
I tell them I cut firewood, or tell them that I'm a grunt, but it won't always be like that. I've got to do something.
Gotcha.
So,
all right. So, what'd you have for breakfast this morning?
I had a Mountain Dew, and then I didn't eat. I had a Mountain Dew for breakfast. That's it.
All right, man. Breakfast of champions.
And it's totally going against the grain because I used to be, and I got to get back at it. I used to be a gym rat and just used to do all that stuff. And Mountain Dew is probably the worst thing you can drink, and I shouldn't be drinking it.
Yeah, it's probably the worst drink in the world.
It is the worst for you. Mountain Dew is. It is.
Yep.
But I like it.
But today it was breakfast. Very nice.
Yeah.
All right, so you get your own billboard. It's blank. It's a blank canvas. You can put anything on the world that you want to put on that canvas. What's that? What goes on that billboard?
Well, there's a picture of me, of course.
All right.
This is a dream, right? This is just like a dream.
Whatever you want it to be. Whatever you want it to say.
Okay. Is this a billboard trying to puff myself up?
You can do that. You can just try to make some artsy statement. You can do a hashtag, whatever you want it to be. What would you throw on there?
I would put on there a picture of me, and this is going back to shed antlers that I've held because I got buddies that collect sheds, and I know sheds decent, but not as good as racks. Like I was saying earlier, I would put a picture of me holding the Fleming sheds out of Saskatchewan. They were found in 1983, and they're I don't know, they just blew me away when I held them. I still talk about them. They're just amazing, and I'd hold those in that same picture. I'd hold those Fleming sheds in my hand. And the catchphrase, I'm big into quotes, and the catchphrase that I used to use years ago when I was back in high school, right out of high school, I'd put, seeing is believing.
All right, very nice.
That's my billboard. That was one of my many years of college. That was computer graphics was my major, so I kind of got to mess around with a little bit of photography and layout and design. So that's what just something simple. Because if you got so much up there to read, nobody's going to take the time to read the whole thing. They just want something quick and to the point.
Gotcha. All right. So if I give you the word successful, who's the first person that pops into your head and why?
Deer hunting successful?
Yeah, whatever. What's the first person?
Gosh, you're putting on the spot.
Yep.
A happy person is successful.
Good answer. I like that one.
That's a good way to put it. I don't want to call one certain person out and say, yeah, this guy's successful or this guy's successful. It wouldn't be fair, but a happy person is successful, I would say.
Yep, I agree with you. All right. What's a day in the life, just a regular day, non-hunting day in the life of Cameron COBLE?
COBLE, I interrupted you.
COBLE, Cameron COBLE.
I'm sorry. Get up fairly early, what I'm doing. Go move some stuff, go do some stuff, go pick some stuff up. I know I'm being very vague, but it's kind of a hard question to answer.
All right. So let's switch over to deer season.
When I wake up, like most of America, when I wake up, you got to look at your cell phone because it's like reading the newspaper. So that's what I do right when I wake up, right?
Yep. Right.
Gotcha. You're doing one thing. You're looking at Facebook. So,
of course, with the rest of the world, you're going where the rest of the world is.
I do what everybody else does. I look at Facebook.
All right, so
and then I go do my back-breaking work that they make me do that gives me some money to go do some stuff. So,
got it.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, I'm doing something with. This time of year, I'm kind of starting to get more geared towards bowfishing. I bowfish a lot in the spring and summer, so kind of getting into the mix of that, and still yet just trying hard with the shed antlers, and just always thinking. I met a deer hunter years ago, and that somebody else that knew him said something to me that stuck, and they said that this particular guy, every day he does something to do with his hunting of deer. He's doing something every single day, whether it's shooting his bow or working on a tree stand or just driving around the roads and looking. He's doing something every day. Yeah. 365. He's doing something with it.
That's a good way to live, I think, if you're a deer hunter. If you can pull it off, that's the great way to do it. All right.
Yeah.
So let's transition into a day in the life of deer season. What's that look like for you?
Well, what time of year are we talking?
Let's do middle of the rut.
Middle of the rut. If I can hunt a morning versus the evening, I want to go morning every day, just because I feel like the morning's a little bit better. I mean, any time's good that time of year. And I don't have a problem sitting all day. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, especially now we got cell phones and cool stuff we can do on them, so you can sit there a lot longer, and you got extra batteries.
That's a good point. You don't get bored.
I remember back in 1995 and years like that where I'd sit in the tree stand dark to dark, and I didn't see a single deer.
Right.
That just takes some discipline for a 16, 17-year-old kid to sit there and not see a deer. I mean, you got to be really driven or really something wrong with you.
It takes some serious discipline at that age. I don't know how you did it.
I don't either.
I had a couple of those days too, where I had everything else on my mind, but I stayed there all day and I didn't see a darn deer. But that's the way it goes.
I hear you.
That's the way it goes, man. Well, that's the 10 questions. You did a great job. Very creative and unique answers. I really enjoyed that. Yeah. But Cameron.
Well, I tried to give you a straight shot on everything. I mean, I may not have been the best answer on everything, but that's about what I could do for you. So.
I thought it was fantastic. Dusty, do you have any last questions for Cameron?
No, I don't. He answered everything pretty thoroughly, and man, some public hunting sounds pretty interesting, Cameron.
It's fun. Like I said, I have some private land I can get on. I like that public hunting challenge just because it's the ultimate challenge. I mean, there's just nothing tougher. And my hat's off to the guys that kill big deer on public every year. That's awesome. I'm not trying to make a competition between hunting public and private, and then you post stuff like on Facebook, and it just starts a war. I mean, it just spirals into a whirlwind of a mess. So right. I don't post stuff I try not to, but it's just like people turn on people, and I'm like, well, this and this and this, and the older I get with it, I just let it go, and everybody hunts their own way, and they enjoy it, and that's what it's about. So have fun with it, and it is what it is,
That's awesome.
You make it what you want.
Great answer, man. Cameron, this has been fantastic. It's been a true honor to talk to you and dissect your habits. You really opened up, and I appreciate that, and so will our entire fan base. Yeah. It's we love listening to guys that kind of get it done in the woods, and you definitely fit that bill. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Very nice. Thanks for joining us on the Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. It's amazing that you can find a new perspective on deer hunting every time you talk to somebody. Cameron had just this whole perspective of deer hunting that I don't think we've ever really touched on. And you can tell when somebody is so into deer hunting that they know the scores of all the records in each state. He knows numbers. He studies numbers in books. He goes to every single deer show. One of the most unique things of what he said to us was that he waits to go to the show midday as all these bucks get checked into the show so he can get a better understanding of which ones are going to be the show best. And he wants to wait for all the competitors basically to show up. And then they'll go and analyze every deer that's there, it seems like. Just somebody that is really deeply rooted in a love for everything deer hunting. And I got to respect that.
Yeah, it's definitely something you can respect for sure, Jay.
Love hearing different perspectives and just viewpoints on how to get it done in the deer woods. So thanks to Cameron COBLE for joining us on the Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week this week?
Well, absolutely, Jay.
The Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used firearms, bows, used bows, located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, morsessportinggoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morse's Sporting Goods.
Everybody says, oh, man, them shooting lanes. Shooting lanes. And I said, yeah, I know about shooting lanes. And they say, all right, I'm going to go cut a bunch back this spring once the green gets on. Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you, it seems like, that's a great time, but right now you're not disturbing anything. You're not in there messing with stuff. So I like to clear my shooting lanes, do that big trim back right now.
Before the growth.
Before the growth. And that way, once the green hits, you don't have as much to cut back, and your deer are already adjusted to the no levy stuff right now. You go in there and cut it back, they're going to walk through there, no questions asked. They're not going to be all spooky and skittish after you cut a bunch of stuff that leaves on it. So I just suggesting get out there and do your trimming now, and I think in the long run it'll save you some time come this fall.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now's the time you're going to get that great perspective before it grows in, and they won't be all skittish about it because you've changed the scenery by the time it gets to deer season.
That's exactly right.
Love it, man. Very good. This has been a fantastic show. Love listening to Cameron tell about all his different details of his different hunts and all the tips that I don't think he even realizes that they're tips. They're just things he does naturally, but to us, they're tips. And we appreciate, the world-class deer hunter and giving us the opportunity to break down their strategies and tactics. Thanks to Jim Keller for the deer news. Thanks to Jim Snow and the Euro Hanger. Thanks to Jim Morse and Morse's Sporting Goods for being sponsors of the show. And thanks to Parker Maloney for some of our background music. Dusty, this has been fantastic. Where can we find you when you're not hanging out here on the mic with us?
Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. You can shoot me an email here, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. Or you can hit me up on Instagram @ChasingAntler. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
Awesome, man. Well, first I want to let you know we started a new show called Deer Tracks, and you can find that on iTunes. You can also find different posts of that on Facebook, and that's Deer Tracks over on iTunes. You can always shoot me an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com. You can always find this show on iTunes, and if you like the show enough, please leave us a review. And if you wouldn't mind, subscribe to the show so you can get the feed every single week as we launch each show. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Big Buck Registry. If you'd like to participate in showing off a photo of your big buck that you got anytime in the last season or whenever, I don't care if it was 1962, you send that picture in and hopefully a picture of you with the buck, some details about the name of the hunter and where the buck was shot, and we'll get it featured on the Big Buck Facebook page, which I think is approaching 250,000 fans, if I'm not mistaken. And you can always follow us on Instagram, which is bigbuckregistry.com/Instagram. Check us out on Clamor, which is bigbuckregistry.com/Clamor, which is a kind of a cool way to share all your favorite audio, just like you would with Twitter, but this time it's just with audio. And you can always listen to our past shows on the Outdoor Podcast channel, also found on iTunes at outdoorpodcastchannel.com. Man, it's been fantastic. Thanks again, Dusty, for hanging in there with us at the Big Buck Podcast, and me on the mic and you on the mic, and just having a good time. So,
a whole lot of Big Buck right there, Jay.
A whole lot of Big Buck. Yes, sir. I'm Jay Scott.
I'm Dusty Phillips.
This is the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.